Canada has just proposed the most intense gun ban in the history of our country, and has done it in one of the most duplicitous manners possible. While Bill C-21 originally was already a pretty catastrophic thing for gun owners in Canada, as it banned the transfer, sale, and purchase of handguns, after being approved in the second reading, Justin Trudeau's Liberals have snuck in a cheeky little last-minute amendment. A last-minute addition of over 300 pages, to be precise, that was not announced or read in the initial proposals at all. November 17th, the amendments G4 and G46 were added to Bill C-21, and they were brought forward by Mr. Chiang, the Secretary to the Minister of Housing, Diversity, and Inclusion. Yep. That sounds like the guy we want deciding what firearms we have and don't in this country. Instead of just banning the use of handguns for the alleged purpose of stopping crime, these amendments have now snuck in a swath of other rifles, not so-called assault rifles, not handguns, but simple hunting firearms, even antique firearms and display models that no criminal would ever imagine wielding during some sort of violent crime. But before we get into just how messed up this action really gets by the Liberal Party, I wanted to give a massive thank you to this channel's sponsor for making videos like this possible, Noble Gold. $2,000. That's where gold is headed according to predictions from the Bank of America. $2,000 an ounce with continued growth throughout 2023. And their predictions are looking fairly accurate, with gold crossing $1,800 at the beginning of December, and the Fed consistently failing to fight inflation. If this year has taught us anything, it's that tangible assets are the only assets you can count on, like gold. It's time to open a gold IRA. Crypto keeps on tanking, stocks are too volatile, gold in your IRA is steady. Thousands of people have retired comfortably with the help of Noble Gold investments. Now is the time to act. And if you get in before the end of this month, you'll receive an incredible free 3-ounce silver American Virtue coin with every qualifying IRA of $20,000 or more. You can't go wrong with Noble Gold investments. Call 877-646-5347 to find out more, or visit noblegoldinvestments.com. Alright, welcome back. To give you an idea of just how intense these new amendments are to Bill C-21, just the passage of G46 alone will add a 307-page list of new banned firearm models to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's already extreme list of 1,500 firearms banned in 2020. The worst part about these amendments, though, is how vague they are. The G4 amendment's first clause would effectively ban any rifle or shotgun that could potentially accept a magazine with more than 5 rounds, whether or not it has such a magazine or not. And it somehow gets worse. The list also names guns that fall afoul of 2 rules nominally intended to ban powerful military weapons, such as .50 caliber sniper rifles and mortars. One rule bans long guns that can generate more than 10,000 joules of energy, and the other bans guns with a muzzle wider than 20 millimeters. Critics say that those rules would ban everything from antique blunderbusses to the 9 o'clock gun in Vancouver's Stanley Park. Lastly, the amendment prohibits, by name, a large number of semi-automatic firearms that do not have detachable magazines and don't meet the definition of an assault-style firearm, or infringe on the other 2 rules, but which the government wants to ban anyway. They include a number of long guns in wide use by Canadian hunters. And there are still people out here with the audacity to suggest there is no slippery slope. We went from banning Ruger Minis and M14s in 2020, which was already crazy, to now this amendment banning 1940s Russian military surplus rifles like the SKS or the SVT-40. Even things like the .22 Plinkster are up for question. Literally a gun for plinking, i.e. shooting tin cans. Conservative MP Bob Zimmer asked the parliamentary committee specifically if they would be banning the Mossberg Plinkster long rifle, and the government's technical specialist with the Canadian Firearms Program stated, "No, that's a conventional hunting rifle unaffected by what is in C-21. The only problem being, he lied. There is a version of the Plinkster listed for prohibition in the amendment. The government are playing games with their people. It's no wonder individuals like Matt DeMille, the Director of Policies and Programs for the Ontario Federation of Hunters, have come out to the media to express their frustration, with DeMille stating, "The government was clear that hunters and hunting firearms were not the target of this legislation. Now we see that it is going to affect firearms that are being used by hunters across the country. Hunters are left thinking, what next?" And they're certainly right to be thinking that, because it seems there is no line the government won't cross, even as they assure us that we are just being paranoid right-wing fearmongers, while explicitly lying to us and committing the very violations of our rights they claim we are paranoid about losing. Now, of course, the government always give us a reason for taking our rights. They claim it is for our safety. What a wonderful thing. But I have to ask, is it really? Because I don't think the numbers are adding up here. Guns are used for a variety of things, such as self-defense, sport, and even feeding oneself, particularly in more rural and Indigenous communities. Let's compare that to something only used for recreation like alcohol. If you look at the comparisons between guns and alcohol, they actually have a lot of similarities on a legislative level. Both of these items are safe when used right and dangerous when used wrong. Both afflict minorities to a greater degree. Both can be factors in fatal accidents. Both are factors in suicides, and both lobby governments, except government is literally a retailer of alcohol, so there's a bit of a bias there. Anyways, the point is there is a lot of crossover here, but where you find the biggest differences between these two items is in the harm they cause our society. Annual deaths from firearms in Canada is around 1,000, only 250 of those being homicides. Annual deaths caused by alcohol in Canada is around 7,000. So that was a study from 1999. Apparently today it is significantly worse, with approximately 15,000 preventable deaths being caused by alcohol and 90,000 preventable hospital admissions. As for being factors in violent crime, guns only account for 3% of cases. Yet alcohol is a factor in 20% of violent crimes. If the Canadian government truly wanted to reduce avoidable crime and deaths in Canada, they would start with banning alcohol. Unlike guns, it literally has no non-recreational use and is responsible for 7 times the deaths in our country and significantly more violent crime causation. So why won't the government ban it? Well, there's a few reasons, in my opinion. One, as mentioned earlier, both guns and alcohol lobby the government. But the government literally are the alcohol lobby. They are the liquor stores. They directly make profit off people drinking more. Second, politicians love alcohol. And so do the public. No one wants to ban alcohol because it is their hobby, even if it is statistically more dangerous for people to have than guns. The tragic truth of the matter is that people don't really care about reducing crime when it impacts something they view as a valuable right to themselves. They don't care that crime-deterring policies are impacting hunters because they are not hunters, though, so they can virtue signal all they want about how good they are for wanting to reduce that kind of crime because it's not impacting their hobby. But suddenly, if some crime deterrent policy were to affect their ability to get blackout drunk at the club on a Friday night, I think you'd see a whole lot of people up in arms about the Canadian government being a dictatorship. And this is the issue. We are such a divided populace that we don't realize all our rights matter. Because when the government have the ability to take away someone else's hobby or way of life using faulty reasoning, they can use that exact same faulty reasoning to take away yours one day. And let's see, if the threshold for losing one's rights is only 1,000 deaths a year in our country by criminals not following the already pre-existing laws around a certain activity and therefore punishing everyone else, there is a lot of rights we could find ourselves soon losing due to the actions of the criminal few. This logic could be used to ban cars, cigarettes, alcohol, even sugar, all of which cause more deaths than firearms annually in the first case. And I'm not saying that these are great things for the population, right? But we all know in moderation and when used correctly, all of these items can be beneficial to our lives and the human experience. A cigar with your dad once a year, a drive to the mountains, a cheesecake every once in a while, or a hunt in the woods with your grandfather. These are all things that are important to some people and make life richer when engaged with in a healthy manner. Those who fought to legalize weed in Canada had to spend years fighting back against an oppressive government who used the worst representations of marijuana and the worst statistics possible to prevent people from having that right. Canadian press reports showed in 2014 that nearly 9,000 Canadians were killed by cannabis use that year. Other studies claimed cannabis was causing lung cancer or various other types of cancer. Most of this data was found to be false later on, but the government and media kept using that to keep that right from Canadians. It really scares me to think that way too many of those very same people who were cheering on cannabis legalization and a more rational approach to the data by government and media are now fully accepting the exact same false data presentations and lies sold by the government to take away our right to firearms in this country. We must remain consistent as a population when defending our rights, or it will affect us all. I don't really care if your hobby is ganja or guns. It is the people versus the state. And they are on a perpetual march to take our rights. And in our division, they will continually win till we have nothing.